Hello and welcome to today's video. In our today's video, we are going to discuss church. We are going to look at inclusive practices in the church, and we are basically giving tips on how the church can practice inclusion. So the topic of this video is how you can practice inclusion in your church. So welcome once again. My name is Shirley N. I am an inclusion specialist, a principal consultant at Taboshi Inclusive, also the founder of the company. We are a consultancy and special needs support services company based in Botswana. Hello and welcome. We are discussing inclusion in the church. We know that church is a very big industry, especially in America and in Africa. And we are given tips on how a church can practice inclusion, given that a church is a very big institution. A lot of people run to a church to find solace in God and also to find or to cope with their overwhelming day-to-day challenges. So we feel like the church should be it should be an area of inclusion rather than exclusion. I'm wearing this t-shirt written Emmanuel TV, and we know that Emmanuel TV is an entity of the Synagogue Church of All Nations. The reason why I'm wearing this t-shirt is to give tribute to the late sinner prophet T.B. Joshua. May his soul rest in peace. And also to acknowledge the work that they do, the Emmanuel TV does, and the Synagogue Church of All Nations does, and as far as inclusion in the church is concerned. I have personally visited the Synagogue Church of All Nations in Nigeria, and I have seen and I have learned a lot in terms of inclusion in the church. And some of the things that I'm going to be talking about here, I have seen them implement there, and I know that they are possible. And I feel like we could learn a lot of things, and I'll refer a lot of pastors, church leaders to the Synagogue Church of All Nations to learn and to see how inclusion can be practiced in the church. Hello and welcome once again. Well, we are still going to look at these three tenets of inclusion: access, equity, and quality. And I want to start with access. The church can develop access or increase access through these things that I'm going to outline. Now, before we even go further, I want to emphasize that inclusion is meant to increase participation of all people. We cater for people with special needs or people with disabilities, so that at the end of the day, you have all people participating in whatever product or whatever service that you are offering. So it is very, very important. Once the people are all participating, or you have an increased participation of people, it means that you are going to have greater sales and or increased sales, and you are also going to have higher or increased happiness levels of your employees, resulting in higher productivity. So you can see that participation or increased participation is very, very important, in the sense that it would increase your sales and it would also increase productivity of your employees, or whatever, not just the employees, in terms of all your stakeholders. Their happiness levels will increase, and then there will also be increased productivity. So these are the two benefits, but not all of them. There are lots of them, but these are just the two benefits that I wanted to emphasize in as far as inclusion is concerned. So now let's look at the issue of access, how you can improve access. First of all, I want to say that in the church, you can look at issues of language. the languages, or you can differentiate your languages so that you have increased participation, so that you have increased access. When you differentiate languages, you do what you call translation. You translate so that you have all people catered for. Translation would depend on your audience. You translate to different languages looking at your audience. If, for instance, your audience are mostly people using 2 or 3 languages, you translate to those different languages so that all people are accommodated in your setting. And still on the issue of translation, I want to emphasize that don't forget to translate to the language of people with hearing impairment or deafness. Translate to sign language so that people with deafness are also catered for. The next aspect still there is distant people, catering for distant people who might be in prison, people who might be in hospitals, people who might be on home-based care. So you cater for those people by, in Emmanuel TV they call it distance is not a barrier, because they have done so much in as far as breaking the distance, the barrier due to distance. They use different platforms, like YouTube is a very good platform to break the barrier, and now there also is Facebook Live, which you can use even for people to access your service as it goes on. But apart from that, you can also record your messages such that people who are far off or who might be held up could be able to access those messages. So in as far as distance is concerned, if you use these platforms, that barrier would be broken. So you use different platforms to reach out to people who are in prison, who are in hospitals, and all those things. And then the next aspect still on access is time. Differentiate your services, your time for services. You can have maybe 2 services in a day if you are on Sunday, for instance, or if you are not able to have 2 or 3 services in a day, you can still record your services and then make them available to people so that those who could not attend the service at the time that your service was on could still be able to access those services, maybe on CDs, maybe on platforms where you have recorded that service. And still on the issue of recording and maybe distributing the recorded messages, I just want to emphasize on issue of affordability. And as much as you want to distribute those messages maybe in CDs, be careful not to make your prices too high, or at least to differentiate your prices so that we cater for people of all levels in terms of our wealth status. So this is the other issue, like I said, is time. The other issue is affordability. The other issue is also formats. Differentiate the formats in which you give maybe your preaching. If you are presenting your preaching and speech like I am doing, you could also differentiate or transcribe to different formats. You can transcribe to audio, transcribe to braille or to tactile means, and also transcribe to text so that people can be able to access that message in different formats. So these things would increase or go a long way in terms of increasing access to your messages, and it will increase participation in terms of your church membership. And remember that we want to gain as many souls as possible to God. We assume that the church, that is its mandate to gain as much population or as much souls to God, to win such souls. And so we have to practice inclusion so that more and more people can be able to be won. to God. The next aspect that I want to look or add is equity. Remember that when we talk about equity, we are talking about creating equal opportunities for all people so that we have increased participation. So in terms of equity, we could still go back to issues on access, like language. They would help differentiate language. For instance, it will help a long way, or it will go a long way in increasing equity. But also, equity is looking at issues such as gender, is looking at issues such as age, it is looking at issues such as religion and other things. So in terms of equity, I could say that your arrangement, if it's a service, church service, your arrangement should be promoting equity or equality amongst people. Also, your messages, the way your messages are packaged, or the way the message is the content of your message should be not the content that disunite people. It should be a unifying message. In as much as you might be preaching the gospel, be careful to be very, very sensitive in how you present the message, as well as be very, very accommodative to all people. Don't say, because of gospel, try to discredit some of the people, or say very harsh words in trying to gain as many souls as possible to God. Be careful to be very, very sensitive to issues of gender, to issues of race, to issues of age, to also issues of religion in your messages, so that there is no biasness, there is actually balance in terms of your people or how you treat people. People should feel the love. They should feel the welcome in your church, and you should try by all means to practice balance and equity, and give equity as much as possible in your church. The next one is quality, and in terms of quality, we look at the message itself, we look at the mediums, and then we also look at the messengers. So in terms of the message, I want to say that your messages should be well researched. Your messages in the church should be building messages, empowering messages for your people. The messages that people can relate with. Make quality messages, well-researched messages, balanced messages, not messages that are maybe biased, like we were talking about equity. Make your messages as balanced as possible and well-researched. Your content, pay attention to your content. Use as many sources as you can, even though you might be using the Bible. Also, check other build your messages so that are of very high quality. The next one is the mediums. And in this case, I want to talk about the equipment that you use, maybe to portray or to convey your message in different formats that you are using to convey your messages. So check your mediums to be of high quality. Check your surroundings. Like for instance, your facilities to be soundproof in order to cater for people with hearing aids, because there are certain ways in which your place has to be, especially so that the noises are not too high for people who are wearing hearing aid. You need to cater for such people in terms of your sound system, in terms of everything that you do in the church. Be careful to accommodate all people in such a way. And then the messenger. In the messenger here, we are looking at the human resource as a whole. And when it comes to this, I want to be very, very clear and say, invest in your human resource, especially the frontliners, especially the ushers, the church leadership, the church elders, whoever is going to be dealing with more and more people in your organization or in your church. invest in training these people, especially when it comes to inclusion. Capacitate these people, reach out to capacitate these people in inclusion, to skill them with inclusion skills so that they can be able to give and also to accommodate all people in your church. Still, you might want to differentiate your people such that you cater for all people. If you cater, I mean, you differentiate your preachers so that if, for instance, there's one person who cannot benefit from another preacher, he can be able to benefit from another. So when you differentiate your human resource like that, you can be able to accommodate more people, and more people would be able to come or attend your services or attend your church, because they know that this is not the only person I can go to, there's other person. This is not the only preacher I can always have. I mean, maybe this week this one is preaching and I'll be able to hear one or two things from that person. So basically what we are saying is that you differentiate your human resource, so that if for some reason or the other, some people are not comfortable with this one person, they can still be able to go to this other person. So basically, these are the things that I wanted to share with you. These are the things that we can do to practice inclusion within your church. These are the things that you can implement if you haven't started. Remember to look at issues of access. Remember to look at issues of quality and issues of equity. And you have any questions, comments, pose them so that we can be able to reach out to you. Thank you.